Illinois, Mr. Gutierrez, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, there's an important meeting in the financial district of New York City, right in the heart of stock traders, the investment banks, and the bond buyers and sellers who trade in the debt of companies, countries, and municipalities. Right there in the nerve center of our financial markets, they're holding a meeting. Is it a meeting about Wells Fargo opening up thousands of accounts without the knowledge or consent of their customers? No, nothing like that. Nor anything related to the financial meltdown that our country is still recovering from that started right there? Nope. This is the first meeting of the Puerto Rico Financial Control Board, La Junta de Control, that has supreme power to rule over Puerto Rico. Now, in case there's any confusion with the geography, New York City has a lot of Puerto Ricans, but it is not, in fact, the capital of Puerto Rico. My staff checked. San Juan is still the capital of Puerto Rico. But no, the meeting of the Junta de Control, that has dominion over all aspects of the Puerto Rican people, is not meeting in Puerto Rico. The meeting is taking place pretty close to Wall Street, which I think is symbolic of the way the Junta de Control over Puerto Rico came about. It is very bad omen for the future. Let me explain. There are 7 people, not elected, but appointed, who oversee every aspect of Puerto Rico's governance. For our Republican nominees, there are 3 Democrats, and there is 1 non-voting member of the Junta. Several of the members of the Puerto Rico Junta de Control appear to have deep ties to Wall Street, where you can find many of the bondholders who traded and profited off Puerto Rico's $72 billion in debt. Judge Juan R. Torrella, the first Hispanic appointed by Ronald Reagan to the prestigious U.S. First Circuit Court of Appeals, summed it up pretty well. He said to the Colegio de Abogados, the Puerto Rican Bar Association, that, quote, the principal purpose of PROMESA is to establish a collection agency for the bondholders. And the person who is rumored to be the executive director of the Junta de Control is a big-time corporate energy lobbyist. He's the former head of the Center for Liquefied Natural Gas, a trade association of energy producers, which makes everyone concerned about Puerto Rico's environment nervous, with good reason. So, holding the first meeting in Lower Manhattan confirms to Puerto Ricans that the Junta de Control is by, for, and about the bondholders and corporate interests on Wall Street. So I consider the Junta meeting on Friday as a home court game. The board will elect their chairman on Friday. Yeah, they're going to elect the chairman. Kind of ironic, because they're electing the chairman to an unelected board. Because, well, democracy is good for some people, just not the people of Puerto Rico. And we've been told that members of the control board met secretly in Washington last week at the Treasury offices. Whether this is actually the first meeting of the control board is in great doubt. And all of this raises the bigger problem of transparency. There isn't any. Under the law, this group can meet in secret anywhere in the world, and their proceedings can be conducted in executive session. The board members can receive unlimited and unreported gifts, meals, even tickets to Hamilton, and anything else, and we'll never know. The scandal is coming. They are under no obligation to translate anything into Spanish, which, in case you forgot, is the language of the people that they're to control. I will say, to their credit, that after I wrote to each member of the control board and asked for a public commitment to transparency, a few of them wrote back. None of them made a public commitment to transparency, but a few acknowledged that keeping Puerto Ricans informed, making the meetings publicly accessible, and translating materials in the language of the people being governed were good principles. It remains to be seen whether anyone on the Junta de Control really fights to inform the people of Puerto Rico, really sets up to be a champion for the school teachers and the doctors and the moms and the dads who are struggling, and the firemen and the policemen who serve the people of Puerto Rico and our heroes. And unclear that this control board will step up on behalf of the Puerto Rican people and creating jobs, creating more jobs, and creating more jobs the #1 priority of the Junta. That is the way we create a tax base for Puerto Rico. That is the way we give Puerto Ricanos a viable option to live and work in Puerto Rico rather than moving to Florida or some other state. So, Mr. Speaker, as we leave Washington this week and head home for the great exercise in American democracy in November, I want all of us to keep in mind that the island of Puerto Rico, our colony in the Caribbean Sea, a place that now, more than ever, only dreams of true democracy.